You're listening to Tim Bulkeley's 5-Minute Bible. E100-8. Genesis 21:1 to 22:19. Life on a roller coaster. Phew. What a pair of chapters. First, we finally get round to the birth of the up to then still non-existent heir. At last, the miraculous birth to Abraham. He'll be getting his letter from the Queen any day for his 100th birthday, and Sarah, who, though she's younger, will be a centenarian before her son's a teen. No wonder Sarah makes a pun on his name, referring to laughter, or possibly to love-making. But then, it seems, at least in the telling of the story, though verse 8 marks the passing of years, almost straight after, Sarah gets protective and jealous on behalf of her son. And we read the horrible tale of the great patriarch persuaded by the great matriarch to kick out the woman they'd both been happy to use earlier in the story, when they had less hard evidence to convince them to trust God. Though chapter 16, which is what I'm referring to, comes straight after the dramatic evidence God himself offered in chapter 15, our last reading. Hagar and Ishmael's story is a harsh reminder that humans are broken, warped and twisted by sin, and that the heroes of the Bible, the recipients of God's wonderful miracles, are no different, and that sometimes, for reasons we cannot understand, even God seems to turn away. Then, after some details about wells and stuff that I'm not going to mention, comes chapter 22, one of the most horrible and difficult in the Bible. The telling of the story makes the horror plain, though it never puts it into words. In fact, the words are quite astonishing. Abraham seems to have a blithe ignorance of what's being asked of him and what he's setting out to do. And Isaac seems also strangely trusting and innocent. No, the telling of the story makes the horror plain, but the words don't. So, as the action reaches the most terrible moment, when Abraham prepares to sacrifice his only beloved son, the telling slows to a crawl. Verses 9 and 10. Abraham built an altar there. Well, that's a few days' work told in just a few words. The telling there is fast. And laid the wood in order. Notice that in order. We don't need or want to know that, but it slows the telling. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Again, this is more detail than we want or need. Then Abraham reached out his hand. See, this is real slow-mo, just like the worst scenes in a horror movie. And took the knife. Yes, we know. To kill his son. Scream. From the audience, not the victim. You see what's happening? It's just like the scenes in a horror movie. The telling slows right down at this point to make sure we notice what's going on. We are meant and intended to be repulsed by what's being demanded of Abraham. Why did God demand it? Did God demand it? What's going on? One thing that's going on is that in this story there are little clues to the big story, the story beyond these chapters. Did you notice back there when Isaac and Abraham were trudging towards the mountain, Isaac said to his father Abraham, verse 7, "Father," and he said, "Here I am, my son." And he said, "The fire and the wood are here, but where's the lamb for a burnt offering?" Abraham said, "God himself will provide the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." And he will too, but not till the second half of this E100. And again, in verse 13, after the angel has spoken to Abraham and said, "Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." And Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. Abraham went and took the ram and offered it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, "The Lord will provide." as it is said to this day, on the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. Hints and clues to the big story. But what a horrible pair of chapters, despite their wonderful beginning. And isn't life sometimes like that? To repeat the tritest cliche,